Good evening, you're watching World News Tonight on TVP World. I'm Aaron Darman. We have concluded the mother of all deals. That's the message from the European Union tonight, sealing a mega trade pact with India as both sides pivot in the face of Donald Trump's tariff crackdown. We'll have extensive coverage of this agreement across the programme, including what it means for Central and Eastern Europe. But first, the latest headlines. Europe ramps up its charm offensive in Beijing. Poland secures a record €44 billion in EU defence funds. And another night of Russian strikes kills at least 6 people in Ukraine. But we begin tonight with a landmark trade deal between the EU and India, which is expected to open up the most populous country in the world to the bloc's 27 member states. From market access for European-made cars and wine to exports of textiles and gems, negotiations have been turbocharged since Donald Trump unleashed his global tariffs last year. For more, let's go live to our correspondent Alex Keir in Brussels. Good evening, Alex. A long time coming. What more do we know about this protracted agreement?
Well, good evening, Aaron. A long time is the diplomatic, generous way of saying it. This has been 20 years in the making. This deal was stalled, then revived, then frozen, then defrosted, then negotiated, then renegotiated. Both sides fell out over disagreements many years ago. It had entered what Brussels calls the constructive talks phase, which means, frankly, very little was happening. But then came Donald Trump. Then came the aggressive US tariff policy. Then came 50% tariffs on Indian exports to the US. Then came tariffs to the European Union. Threats of more tariffs over Greenland, certainly focusing their minds in New Delhi and right here in Brussels. What does it mean in practice? It means that 97% of the exports from the European Union to India will see a reduction in tariffs. Coming the other way around, India to the European Union exports, 99.5% of those will see reduced tariffs. That, for European companies, will represent a savings, roughly, according to the European Commission, of €4 billion a year, and that is for the companies already exporting to India. Others may join them because of this easing of tariffs. Now, it's all not going to happen all suddenly, all in one go. Indian goods flooding into Europe, European cars flooding into India. This will be progressive. But if you look at cars, for example, cars over €15,000 being exported from India will have a reduced tariff. It'll go down from 110% to 35%, and over several years will go down to 10% if the Indian market is not too threatened by these tariffs. So clearly, this is a momentous, an enormous trade deal. A quarter of the world's GDP, a third of the world's population celebrating this deal. Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission President.
We did it. We delivered the mother of all deals. We are creating a market of 2 billion people. And this is the tale of two giants, the world's second and fourth largest economies. Two giants who choose partnership in a true win-win fashion.
Partnership in a true win-win fashion. Not particularly thinly veiled comment there by Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission President. This will have an enormous impact for the European Union, for the European economy. It will also, Aaron, have an impact specifically for Poland. And on that, our business editor, Jakub Kapiszewski, looked at the details.
And with a stroke of the pen, the mother of all deals has been signed. The deal, 20 years in the making, will lower tariffs on 99% of goods. But these are just headlines. The real question is, how will countries like Poland benefit?
Poland's trade with India is now quite small in comparison to other European countries, but it means we have big opportunities to develop at the Indian market.
The value of Polish exports to India stands at around $1.5 billion, making the country Poland's 36th ranked export partner, according to monetary value. Polish businesses mainly sell machinery, metals and chemical products to India. Their imports from India, mainly textiles, shoes, headwear and pharmaceuticals, are higher than before and nearing the $5 billion mark. The question is where there is room for improvement.
Direct beneficiaries are companies producing, for example, cosmetics, beauty products, hygiene products, but also machinery, for example, machinery for advanced mining.
While the importance of the mining sector in Poland diminishes, India will probably keep digging stuff up. Poland can then offer its expertise in deep mining. But experts say that it's not only companies that sell directly to India who stand to benefit from the trade agreement.
If German manufacturers export more cars to India, this is a good news for producers of components in Poland.
Of course, in some sectors, the amount of goods Polish businesses can sell to India depends on the condition of the Indian consumer and their demands.
The Indian market has a lot of, let's put it honestly, poor customers.
But this picture could change rapidly.
India is growing very fast, which means growing middle and upper class. These are people that will have money and will look for imported goods, goods that they regard as somehow exotic or luxury.
If that's the case, there's no reason for them to avoid Polish cosmetics.
Moving to Ukraine, where Russian strikes have killed at least 6 people and injured dozens of others, as President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says the Kremlin is undermining any hopes for peace. Our correspondent in Kyiv, Oz Ketteri, is standing by and joins me now. Good evening, Oz. So how did this attack play out?
Well, attacks across the country, particularly a bad one in Mykolaiv, where so many of those deaths have taken place, at least 25 injured there as well. Odessa bearing the brunt of the attack, once again targeting energy infrastructure. But it wasn't just Odessa attacked, also Kharkiv, Sumy, Mykolaiv and Dnipro were among those targeted, as once again Russia is escalating its winter campaign against Ukraine's energy sector in particular. But as you're seeing on your screen there, residential building virtually destroyed by the overnight attack. Now, as we were coming to air, there's been another attack this evening, Russia targeting a passenger train in the Kharkiv Oblast with a drone. 2 people injured, 291 were on board at the point that the train was targeted with this drone. So again, another particularly vicious attack on Ukrainian civilians and civilian infrastructure. This takes place amid a background of further talks between Ukraine and Russia. Here's what President Volodymyr Zelenskyy had to say.
Clear security guarantees for Ukraine and all of Europe, absolutely clear obligations and opportunities for Ukraine's reconstruction, and of course real possibilities to end this war properly. There can be no doubt anywhere in the world now about what kind of war this is, who started it and why it continues. Everyone understands that this is a Russian war, and the responsibility to end the war is also Russian. Pressure must be applied on Russia.
And further talks between Ukraine and Russia are expected in the coming days. But as those talks are about to happen, Ukrainian civilians definitely feeling the brunt of Russia's attacks across the country over the winter period.
Our correspondent in Kyiv, Oz Ketteri, thank you. Beijing's Great Hall of the People is keeping a busy schedule. Today, the Finnish Prime Minister sat down with Xi Jinping. Tomorrow, it's his British counterpart Keir Starmer's turn, both seeking stability in the wake of Donald Trump's posturing towards the Western Hemisphere. Kazimierz Słyszak reports.
China is becoming a hot travel destination for European leaders. Finnish Prime Minister Petteri Orpo met with China's Xi Jinping on Tuesday. The reason? Stronger economic ties.
China is willing to enhance mutual trust, strengthen exchanges and deepen cooperation with Finland.
In this regard, I would like to reiterate President Stubb's invitation to you, Excellency, to visit Finland.
And Finland is not alone in seeking a closer partnership with China. On Wednesday, Keir Starmer will become the first British Prime Minister to visit Beijing in 8 years. As he puts it, China can no longer be ignored.
Sticking your head in the sand and ignoring China wouldn't be sensible.
This new focus on China comes just a few days after a tumultuous week in relations between Europe, Canada and the United States over Greenland, while President Donald Trump backed down from his threats to take over the autonomous territory of Denmark.
We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good.
The fact he made these threats in the first place left a bitter taste in the mouths of many US allies.
Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition.
And that's now pushing them into the arms of America's biggest competitor.
China is welcome, but what we need is more Chinese foreign direct investment in Europe.
So I think the idea behind all these visits, including the current visit by this Finnish Prime Minister, is that we cannot just have uncomfortable ties with both the US as well as China.
At the same time, the United States continues to be the biggest trade partner both for Europe and Canada. That's forcing them to navigate relations between the two superpowers.
We have commitments under CUSMA that not to pursue free trade agreements with non-market economies without prior notification. We have no intention of doing that with China.
Still, an increased focus on China instead of the United States is music to Beijing's ears. The country is already investing heavily in Europe. According to the Mercator Institute for China Studies, Beijing invested €5 billion in the European electric vehicle market in 2024, almost a 50% increase from 2022. And that affects the entire continent, including Poland.
Poland is, in a sense, part of that because motor industry is a significant part of our economy as well, but not as dominant as in the case of Germany. So we have the kind of dilemma here, but at the same time, there is no choice.
China is also looking to utilize the new Arctic trade route, which is opening up due to climate change and the melting of the ice caps. Here is where Finland could come in as a crucial partner, and the US is left watching its main competitor make new deals with Europe. For TVP World, Kazimierz Łysiak.
From drones to air missiles, Poland has been granted a multi-billion euro green light in its bid for low-interest defence loans from the European Commission. In fact, Prime Minister Donald Tusk says most of the approved 44 billion euros could go to Polish companies, including the country's armament group, as well as private and state-owned entities. Defence correspondent Zuzana Jurek has more.
It's official. Poland's bid for the Security Action for Europe or SAFE low-interest loans programme for defence procurement has officially been approved by the European Commission.
The scale here is truly unprecedented. We're talking about nearly 44 billion euros in European Union funds, and we conservatively estimate that 80% of these funds will go to Polish companies, to the Polish armaments group, to private and state-owned entities.
Warsaw will be the biggest beneficiary amongst the 19 EU members who applied for the programme, with other top recipients likely to include Romania and France. The regulations of SAFE loans detail two categories of procurement which can be financed through the mechanism. Category 1 includes ammunition and missiles, artillery systems, combat equipment, smaller drones and military mobility projects. Category 2 includes larger weapon systems, namely air and missile systems, maritime surface and underwater capabilities, larger drones, strategic enablers, meaning capabilities essential for making combat forces effective, sustainable and capable of operating over long distances, and AI and space-related projects. According to Poland's plenipotentiary for safe implementation, Magdalena Sobkowiec-Czarnecka, Warsaw's priorities include
drones or anti-drones. We are, as a Poland, we are also building the Eastern Shield, and lots of this money coming from SAFE mechanism will be spent on building the Eastern Shield program, also for the Safe Baltic Sea program, which is mostly about how we can protect the critical infrastructure on the bottom of the Baltic Sea.
Though the 139 projects listed in the now approved National Defence Strategy are classified, analysts have flagged Polish frontrunners likely to benefit from these funds.
Huta Steelworks, which manufactures the Badger infantry fighting vehicle, among other things. There is talk that either more vehicles will be purchased under a contract financed with SAFE funds, or that the Badger will replace the BWP-1, that is, post-Soviet equipment largely donated to Ukraine as support. And this equipment must be replaced with modern combat vehicles.
Individual member states can make purchases on their own until April 2026. Thereafter, joint procurement by 2 or more countries will take effect as means of limiting competition between bidders.
Let's remember that there's an armament renaissance in Europe. European countries want to come together. They want to acquire new competencies and capabilities, and this also presents an opportunity for some Polish companies.
It's now expected that negotiations for loan agreements and triggering of pre-financing will get underway before the end of the first quarter of 2026. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
America's ambassador in Warsaw insists Donald Trump respects the country's sacrifice in NATO missions, despite his claims that non-US soldiers stayed away from the front lines in the Afghanistan war. The remarks have drawn backlash across Europe, including Poland, with 33,000 homegrown soldiers and Defence Ministry personnel having served in the 20-year conflict. John Todd explains.
Polish soldiers carry the body of a colleague in Afghanistan, one of 5 killed in this roadside bomb blast in 2011. US President Donald Trump claimed last week that NATO allies stayed a little off from the front lines in Afghanistan and that the US had never needed them. His comments are continuing to cause outrage in Poland.
The issue of the dignity of the Polish state and the Polish uniform has become a serious diplomatic challenge. We will act in a very thoughtful and responsible manner, but also decisively whenever Polish national interests or the honor of a Polish soldier are in any way threatened.
Nearly 33,000 Polish soldiers and Defence Ministry personnel took part in the near 2-decade US-led mission. 43 Polish soldiers were killed, along with 1 civilian employee.
Most of my colleagues, brothers in arms and friends feel hurt by President Trump's words. After all, we stood with America during their difficult time, even though we suffered.
Poland's President Karol Nawrocki is coming under increasing fire for his lack of criticism of Trump. He appeared to seek exception for Poland from the comments as he was hosted in Lithuania at the weekend, without raising Vilnius's contribution to the mission.
I am convinced that President Trump didn't have Poland in mind, or else he wouldn't call Polish soldiers great warriors when we spoke in Davos.
US Ambassador to Poland, Thomas Rose, has insisted that Donald Trump respects the country's sacrifice in NATO missions. He posted on X that Poland has no greater friend than President Trump. The Afghan veteran Przemysław Wojtowicz, who now works to rehabilitate wounded soldiers, said the truth will out.
Soldiers, out of honor, shouldn't worry about this. I think this truth will defeat itself.
Fellow allies are continuing to call on Trump to apologise and set the record straight. John Todd for TVP World.
We return now to our top stories, Europe's trade deal with India and the courting of the Global South. And joining me now for an exclusive interview is Diane Francis, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. Good evening to you, ma'am. So the EU strikes a long-stalled trade deal with India. The Mercosur agreement with South America is on ice, and we've got these leaders flowing through the Grand Hall in Beijing to meet with Xi Jinping. Is Europe really hedging its bets in the face of Donald Trump? And we just seem to be having some technical difficulties there with Diane Francis, the Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. Diane, are you still with us? Just some sound difficulties. Diane, are you there? It seems that we may have lost Diane Francis, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council, who of course we have on a number of times here on World News Tonight. Diane, are you still with us?
So, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you. Brilliant. Oh, I'm glad we saved it. I can hear you. I will start that again. It is really good to have you with us, Diane. So the EU strikes this long-stalled trade deal with India. There's the Mercosur agreement. The leaders are flowing through the Grand Hall in Beijing. I mean, is Europe really hedging its bets when it comes to, well, Donald Trump and his tariff thunder? And it appears that we have unfortunately been cut off again from Diane Francis. That is a shame, but that is all from Diane Francis tonight, and that is all from us here at World News Tonight. Do stay with us on TVP World for more. I'm Aaron Darman. Good night.